If you'd be so kind, if anybody has a cell phone, if you just check that ringer for me, please, before we get started. And then, we'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start with a pledge to our flag and a moment of prayer, and then we'll get right into it. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Father, we come to you tonight. We ask, Lord, as we do so often, for your blessings. We ask for guidance. We ask for wisdom. Lord, I pray that you'll be with us as we conduct our county business. We pray a special prayer for our nation, our leadership, and the leadership in this county as well. Give us safe traveling mercies as we depart here tonight, Lord. These things we'll ask in your name. Amen. Amen. All right. I'll have a copy of the minutes. If you read over those, we'll entertain a motion to approve those. Motion to approve, Chair.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Yes, sir. All right. Commissioner Allen?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Okay, we have a guest here tonight, Miss Jennifer. Hi, you come on up, Jennifer, and let us know about the events at the library, please.
Thank you. Also, thank you for letting me change my date. A few weeks ago, I was not able to be here due to some kind of sickness. But I've passed out my quarterly report this is for the first quarter, January through March. Also have included a May calendar, which is almost over, a value statement, which is new for the region, and the summer reading calendar, which has June and July, and a description on the back. So that's all there. As far as the first quarter report, on the statistics, none of the numbers changed enough to be mentionable, except for the ebooks checkout is down almost 33%. And I think that that's because we switched from Georgia Download Destination to RB Digitals. There was about 2 weeks of downtime where nothing could be checked out. So I expect that to come up again. Our adult programming highlights, we had 52 programs with 443 in attendance. We were still doing a lot of programming through our Vibrant Communities grant from the Georgia Council for the Arts. So we had 2 storytellers, Pat Shields and Andy Offit-Irwin did 2 adult and 2 children's storytelling concerts. So that happened, and then we had a calligraphy series led by Mike Moak, who's our board chairman, and the grant-funded supplies for that. And he still does calligraphy once a month, and now the supplies are provided by the library because we got those through the grant programming. Also, because of the contact with Pat Shields through those programs, he offered to do a storytelling show for my inclusive book club, which I lead for adults with all abilities. Right now, it's mostly a group from Fine Finish, so it's adults with disabilities, but I would love for that to truly be inclusive and have a diverse group of adults there to read books together. But Pat Shields did a storytelling concert for that group, and they really had a good time with that. In March, our friends had their spring book sale and made about $2,800, which is pretty good. Our youth programming highlights, we had 85 programs total with 1,575 in attendance. 40 of those programs were done as outreach, so about half of our children's programming is done outside the building in the community. Again, the 2 storytellers did grant-funded programs for the kids. And Terry Kay, who is kind of a local author, he's from Watkinsville, he offered to do a free teen writing workshop at our library, which was amazing. We had 9 kids sign up for that, which is pretty good for teenagers to come to the library and do anything. So that was good. And in March, we also had a stop-motion animation workshop led by Natalie Wright, who's the digital media librarian at Athens. We have access to all of their materials and staff, so we're going to be using her again this summer for some young adult programming with virtual reality and stuff. The stop-motion animation was really cool. We had about 5 kids come for that, and if you have access to Facebook, there's a video, one of the kids' videos is on our Facebook page of the stop-motion animation that he did using Play-Doh and a little camera, so that was cool. The picture here is our 1,000 books before kindergarten graduation, which we hold every March. We had 4 kids graduate this year, and 3 are in the picture. These are kids that have read their 1,000 books or had 1,000 books read to them before they start school, and that will help them with just print readiness. I've mentioned the value statement that's attached. We had some staff changes. Elisa Clater retired in February, and we have hired April Hitchcock-Watson as our new technology specialist. She started April 16th. We had training. I actually got to go to the Public Library Association conference in Philadelphia in March. My travel and registration costs were paid for by the Friends of the Library, and that's all money that they raised from book sales and all the other little things that they do, and we're very lucky to have such a generous Friends group. And I have pictures there at the bottom of different youth programs that happened, and one thing I just wanted to say, I don't talk about what patrons say to us a lot, but this was one of the best things I've heard. We have a patron who's a child, and he's been coming to the library for a long time, and he was very excited when he turned 10 because that meant he could come to the library without his adult. And so his mom was let me know that, and he comes about once a week and is dropped off. He's now 11, and he knows us, and we know him, and he always speaks. And he came up to me at the desk sometime in first quarter and said, the library is my favorite place to go for me time. So if you need to get some me time, you can come to the library for that. And if you're over 10, you don't have to bring your adult. So do you have any questions for me about library events?
Employee working out right?
So far, so good. Yeah, we're real happy that we have a good staff. I'm really pleased.
It's a good idea, the June and July.
Yeah.
Together.
We do that for the summer.
Mm-hmm.
No, that sounds good. I'd like to get some of that me time, though. Yeah. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that. All right. All right, Chairman's report. I had a couple items. I wanted to highlight, first of all, that yesterday started the beginning of National EMS Week. Runs through Saturday of this week, and you know, I'd like to think that we brag on our folks here pretty regularly, but you know, that's an organization that many times doesn't get recognized until you're the customer, and it's very important that you know, if you see them out, you know, give them an attaboy, pat on the back, whatever, because that's a vital service to our county and community. So, and then this past week we started internally with all our departments requesting that they go ahead and start working on a 2019 fiscal year 2019 budget. We're on a calendar year, so January to December. Ordinarily that would sound late to most people, but for us that's actually kind of right on par. So if we can have them do that probably in June, towards the end of June, we'll be wrapping up all that and bringing that before the board. So, and that'll lead us right into the IDBA report. Chairman Bruce Acevedo, he is traveling. Last I spoke to him, he was in California, so all I wanted to do is just kind of give an update. We'll talk a little bit more in our regular business portion here with our agenda items regarding the bond issue. But here recently, the Industrial Development Authority did receive the word that they were approved for a loan from GFA. This is an approval only loan, meaning we're not obligated, nor, you know, is it necessarily our plan at the moment to fund anything with that, but it's always a good position of strength when you go into a project to know that you have at least the funding for it if you need it. And this would be to fund a project, namely a water line from City of Elberton. For us, that would be at the county line to a supply plant located in Culvert. So more to follow. We're still waiting to hear word from the Appalachian Regional Commission. We applied for and have every reason to believe we're in good standing or in running for a what appears to be about a $1 million grant, and that would go to offset any county expense in that project too. So hopefully we'll hear something on that very soon. All right, with that, I'll open it up for remarks from anybody, statements, remarks, as they pertain to items 6 through 9, agenda items tonight. If you have anything, Madison County, we actually give them a chance to give you a chance to make comments on these. So if you'd like to make a comment, concern, or whatever on any of those, feel free at this time. We will not tarry here then. Okay. All right. Our first item up for business consideration tonight is to consider a beer and wine license application for Quick Check. I believe you all have the corresponding paperwork and application. I believe they made the clerk made a copy for everybody, and I will entertain a motion, and then we can have discussion. If there are any questions before we get started, perhaps for the county attorney, if anybody needs any clarification on that.
You want a motion before we can...
I'll entertain a motion right now. Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to deny.
A second. I have a motion and a second to deny. Okay, discussion, comments on that? Talkative crowd here tonight, huh? Is there anything that, okay, with that,
well, if I may, just to complete the record, I did compare this to past applications on that location. This one suffers from the same problems as the prior application that you denied. Again, this property is still under a lease to Amir Inc. that runs through 2021, and that tenant has an option to extend it through 2026. This lease, the prior application had a provision that lease would be canceled if that one were granted. This application has no mention of that existing lease whatsoever. The dollar amounts of the lease remain high compared to the underlying value of the property being leased. It's again for a multi-year term on those. The only difference is the first month's rent is less, but thereafter it's the same as the prior application lease, and it's a 3-year lease running through 2020. Terms are the same, triple net lease. Sale of business again is addressed in the same manner. Amir Inc. is the owner of that business and inventory. There's a provision in the lease that says that the business and inventory may, not shall, be sold by Amir Inc. to this current applicant. I notice, however, the applicant states that he bought the business from Mr. Shafiq on 4/1/18. According to all the paperwork the county's been presented, Mr. Shafiq is not the owner of that business currently. So, again, basically the same defects that were suffered before, and for purposes of giving the notice, unless you tell me otherwise, I will presume that those are the grounds. And of course, all that goes to the provision in your ordinance that the applicant has not met his burden to show that he has adequate management supervisory authority over the business to support the license. If the motion to deny prevails, unless you tell me otherwise, I'll presume those are the reasons for the motion to deny, and I'll write the letter accordingly.
Yeah.
All right, so we still have a motion and a second to deny. Any further comment or discussion? Vote goes to Commissioner Bettis.
Yes.
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 Okay. Thank you for that. All right. Next item is to consider the 2018-19 agreement with the Public Defender's Office, and you have an attachment that outlines the breakdown for the 5-county
Northern Circuit Public Defender's Office. And proportionally, of course, Madison County has the largest contribution to that, with a net, I'm looking for it, I think it's a net increase of, let's say
$7,783.
$7,783 is what they're looking to Madison County for. The proportion, was it here over 29%? Is that correct?
Right, it's actually been 29.2%, or was last year. This year, apparently he just rounded to an even 29%, so that actually goes to our favor a little bit. So it's not that Madison County's proportion went up, it's just the overall expenses went up.
Correct.
Does Madison County have the most on the docket as well?
Absolutely.
I've been told that as well.
That's right.
I like 60%.
By a good margin.
Right. So, with that, with the breakdown in front of you, again, I'll entertain a motion to consider approval or agreement with the public defender's contribution from Madison County.
So moved.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second.
Can I ask one?
We're right there at it. Please discuss.
I tried to call and ask them. The .04 admin fee, it's like almost 12 grand.
Charged by the state, non-negotiable.
That's perfect. Answer my question. How about this one?
Another one.
Great.
Any other comment or discussion on that?
No, sir.
All right, well, the motion and second are to approve the agreement with the Public Defender's Office. Vote is to Commissioner Puffle.
Yes.
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 All right. Next item is to consider approving a resolution or to approve an intergovernmental contract with the Industrial Development Building Authority. As I stated earlier, we just concluded with the Industrial Development Authority where they did in fact approve a resolution to move forward. They established some parameters. We're fortunate, at least tonight, to have the bond attorney, Jim Woodward, and also Mr. Andrew Tripp with Stiefel. Is it Stiefel, Nicholas and Company? Or
Got it, yeah.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
And, but what I would prefer to do, because there were a number of attachments with the document that you received, the parent or the primary document that we're interested in this evening is a resolution now to move forward with this. And I would ask that Mr. Woodward just break it down a little bit for us. Yes, exactly.
All right, so this is kind of the first step in the legal proceedings to issue the bonds to refund the G funds for the authority. But what the authority did earlier today was a bond resolution. They're the issuer of the bonds, and they basically their bond resolution approved all the terms of the bonds, payment dates, who the paying agent is going to be, everything except for the terms themselves. It allows us to basically go out to the market and propose a preliminary official statement. Excuse me, I got a tickle in my throat. Propose a preliminary official statement, which is an offering document, which basically Andrew and his group, Stiefel Nicholas, will use to market the bonds, and we'll come back to you guys on the 31st and approve the final terms. So it's kind of initial steps, gives us approval to move forward, but also allows us to do something called a bond, excuse me, sorry about that, something called a bond validation hearing. And so basically all debt in Georgia, anything that's issued by government to finance any projects, you have to present it to local superior court. And so what we'll do today is tomorrow we'll file a copy of the bond resolution authority approved, and basically there'll be a court case brought by the state of Georgia. There'll be the plaintiffs, and then the defense will be authority in the county. Excuse me. And there'll be a court date on June 6th, where basically all the terms of the bonds and legal proceedings will be approved. And then from that point, we'll have bond validated, and we'll come back on June 11th and close the deal. So basically what this resolution does, it approves the form of the bond resolution that the authority approved earlier today, and also allows us to move forward with marketing the bonds, and basically will allow us to come back to you guys on the 31st and approve the final terms.
31st of
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, 31st of May.
May.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, so we'll be looking at perhaps a cold meeting of sorts to accomplish that. But again, because of the timing and the notification, advertising, the court date, these things have to follow a certain sequence, most importantly not to have them out of order. And the one thing, if you would, Mr. Woodward, just as far as the parameters, the terms, the debt service, and if you can speak to those numbers.
Right, so what we do when we approve the initial parameters resolution, we have not exceed principal amount, which is $5 million, not exceed interest rate, which is 5.25%, not exceed final maturity, things along those lines. And this is a broad envelope. And what we'll do is we'll present those to local superior court, and that's what will be approved to be issued, just as long as we fall within those parameters. And so, and that allows us to go out to the market. Obviously, those principal amounts and interest rates will be lower than that. But basically, we get a kind of a validation or approval to go within those parameters. And then that'll allow Andrew and his group to go out to the market, and knowing that's as high as they can go on those. And then they'll come back and present final numbers again on the 31st. And then there'll be a supplemental resolution which approves all those. So you have one more chance to see exactly what the interest rate is going to be, what your debt service payments are going to be, things along those lines. And also how the structure of the deal is that, you know, it is based off the contract with the county, where the county is obligated to make payments, but it's to the extent the revenues of the system aren't available. So the anticipation is that, the authority's revenues will pay for it first. As they're, they're not pledged to the bonds, but they are available and will be used to pay for it. But then, to the extent that their revenues aren't there, the county will step in under the contract and make up any difference. That's how it's structured. And by doing it that way, a couple different reasons, but the bonds will be issued on the county's rating, which is higher than the authorities, which is an A1 rating. And so you'll get an interest rate based off of that. There's a chance, and Andrew can talk on this as well, there's a chance we might get something called bond insurance. This is a market out there where they'll bond insurer, this group will come in and will insure the bonds. So if there's ever a default, then they'll step in and pay for it. But basically, that allows you to get to a higher rating on the bonds, a AA rating. Of course, you have to pay a premium for that. And so you always look at it this coming week, where if you reduce your interest costs more than the premium, then that's worth doing it. And so it's a financial decision. But they'll be looking at it this week. They'll come back and we'll prove that, along with the terms on the 31st. That's right. And so, but this, again, this is just a resolution, gets us going, allows us to market the bonds, says that, you authorize the contract, you authorize with the authority, you authorize, the issuance of the bonds, but, subject to y'all's approval of the final terms. That allows us to get started. It's kind of what the process is. Yeah.
Any other questions from Mr. Woodward? Thank you very much, and I appreciate it. And before we actually get into the vote and everything, I'd ask that if Andrew could at least, in terms of what we actually refinanced, and the change, the debt service that we're looking to actually get down to, and that's actually the real purpose for doing this anyhow. But I'd like for him, he's got the numbers, and maybe could elaborate also, as Jim did, on the outstanding issue of the bond insurance as well.
Sure. Again, I'm Andrew Tripp, Stifel Nicholas. I'm a bond underwriter. And what is proposed is effectively to look back in time. The authority undertook 12 GFA loans. And the way those GFA loans have stacked over the course of those 12 loans, it's really sort of made the debt service payments look out of whack. So right now they're paying right at $800,000 a year in debt service payments, and over time it tapers down to an artificially low dollar amount. So basically what this bond is doing is it's consolidating 8 GFA loans into one singular bond, and it wraps itself around some really low or 0% interest GFA loans that will remain outstanding, okay? The net of that is that the authority's debt service payments over the next 20 years is going to be right about $535,000 to $540,000. So you can see where that cash flow from $800,000, and that $800,000 eventually gets to zero, right? Now, during that span of time, we're just making it an even about a $540,000 per year to free up cash flow for, you know, the things that need to be done and have it more of a balance. Those loans that are being refinanced range between 3% upwards to a little over 5%. On a blended basis, those loans average on a weighted basis 3.59%, and these bonds will likely be around the 3.3% range. It'll fluctuate between now and next week, but clearly when we market the bonds and we're before you at your called meeting next Thursday evening, we'll have those interest rates. Those will be final, subject to your approval, and the debt service figures, which as you heard Jim say, it was like maybe 5.25 not to exceed. Well, really we're looking at about 3.3, but it gives us flexibility because of the 20 years worth of principal repayment, each bond has a slightly different rate, and it all just kind of averages out to that 3.3 level. So it provides us maximum flexibility, and we appreciate you all having that consideration to give us some wiggle room to operate. But again, this comes back to you all as governing body to accept the final terms next Thursday. So we would encourage you, if you have any questions, to ask us now, because frankly, next Thursday becomes very, very live, and we, you know, would really need to kind of vet any sort of concerns or questions before that, whether it's right now or, you know, just however you guys see fit. So.
Thank you. So, and again, the reason, you know, from in the beginning, this was a discussion that began easily a year ago in addressing our current debt structure within the IDA. And the decision was made not to use this as a vehicle to actually fund or to finance additional or new projects. It is simply to bring our existing loans and our debt under a little bit more manageable debt servicing plan, which also frees up the monthly dollars for the Industrial Development Authority to actually begin in earnest with some necessary projects that we need to get going on. So with that, again, I'll entertain a motion to consider approving a resolution to approve an intergovernmental contract with the Industrial Development Building Authority.
I'll make a motion to approve, Chairman.
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, any comments by the board? Please, go ahead.
I appreciate y'all being here tonight and making the presentation. That was good. I like it. And I do want the IDA to succeed in everything they do, because it is for the county. But I was hoping that there's some IDA people here tonight, maybe some of the board members, because there's questions to be asked, but not of you two.
Well, in all fairness, before we departed, we already did, Derek Doster, right now, as I mentioned, Bruce Osvaldo and Josh Chandler both are out of town. Derek Doster did ask if I thought he needed to be over here, and to be truthful with you, I was not aware of any questions that he might be able to answer that I wouldn't be able to answer, and for that, I'm guilty and responsible. But I'll answer anything that I know on their behalf, because I haven't attended all of it.
I have questions for whoever's running the IDA and some of the board members over there, but John, for all these many years, they've been making debt over there and hadn't asked us or got us into anything going on over there. We had no control over there, no authority. And now all of a sudden they're coming here and wanting us to take responsibility for this thing. There's just more questions than these two gentlemen can answer. But the IDA's got problems, they fired their chairman recently. I'd like to know about what these problems are.
Well, I can share with you that, prior to January of last year, I wasn't part of that board, as you mentioned, but I can tell you that their debt occurred primarily from, engaging and pursuing loans, cheaper loans. And, while they may appear in most cases are low interest and long-term, their authority to incur that debt and everything did not require. I agree, you and I have spoken about this, and I agree 100% with, as we move forward, it's not just style points, it is functional. It needs to be discussed here at this board too. And I don't disagree with that at all. And that is why this, not that, it's not that we're just trying to be transparent here. This is a requirement for the backing of the bond, is that the board actually, take that on and approve a resolution to do that. So quite honestly, it is an attempt to move forward. A number of things have been addressed with our board structure, and I'm satisfied right now. As soon as we fill the director's position, I think that's a viable and a very productive board. And we're certainly trying to be above board and transparent. There's no attempt to do it. Like I said, this is for existing debt, and I think the net effect is somewhere, being very liberal with the numbers, it's probably somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 a year in interest alone.
But that interest continues on at the same level when that other interest will be tapering down.
Right.
There's a point there when we would be gaining money, and this way it stays level, is that right? It's low right now, low.
Right,
Not low,
right, yeah.
low, right now.
But it was existing, the Jeep loans that were not refinanced, as soon as they come off though, I mean, you're still gonna see that money freed up that is not committed, that's not part of it. So the net debt service, for the IDA, will in fact, I mean, that will benefit from that. And I don't know if perhaps this is a question that maybe, do you understand what he's asking?
Sure.
Okay, please.
It is, so there is an equilibrium point where we're at about 540.
I know where that.
Yeah, so you're at 800,000 now. Well, there's a point where it's below the 540 over time. What it's doing, I think, is creating a rate structure that compares to the useful life of the equipment and creates a structure where it's just like not up and down. But to your point, you're correct that there's a point where it becomes lower.
Overall, basically, if you get 3.something% loan, we're gonna pay the same amount of money overall as we're paying on the structure now, right?
You're actually gonna pay a little more on a present value basis, $200,000
I didn't
more
expect that.
over time, because you're paying a lower rate, right, but you're paying it for a longer period of time.
Right.
So the overall, money will be paid more than it is now. If it's left like it is now, at some point, we'll start paying more on principal than we are on interest.
Yes, sir.
But this way, it stays the same longer.
That's right. I think it's the value of $1 today versus the value of $1 tomorrow is the way you have to look at it.
So, yeah, and again, to your point, it equates to approximately $20,000 a year more over the life of the 20-year loan. But there's immediate relief to the IDA as far as the funds freed up in the neighborhood of $250,000 to $265,000 in the near term.
There's a good many people in this county that doesn't have water lines in front of their homes. I understand. Everybody has a water line, don't hook on to it, but they do get a insurance rating that gives them some benefit on the home insurance. But there's an awful lot of county residents in this county that does not have a water line in front of their house. or anywhere close to ever getting one. So we're talking about doing something just for a few as compared to everybody. Now, I know you say the rec department, everybody doesn't use the rec department either. Well, I got a problem with that too.
Okay.
This is free up some cash flow, right? So they can maybe actually help get
Somebody
some
spend more
business.
money, is that what it is?
Well, maybe get some business in the county, which I know that most people in the county have told me they want more business in the county.
Well, you
Property taxes.
put in sewage infrastructure, you're not even getting a major business.
Well, I think that's an opinion. I don't know if that's not a fact.
We got,
I don't know. I agree with that, to be quite honest.
dollar store there, and we had to put sewage on another piece of property, but we got it.
We run sewer across the Bill's
You work
Bar,
things out.
and that's being paid for.
If this is approved, and for some reason, IDA defaults, and we have no bond insurance,
Right.
this will be the taxpayer's obligation, right?
That is true. It would fall to the county and the county's ability to cover that through a millage increase. That is true.
Through a millage increase.
Right, right. You'd have, I mean, you don't have the existing funds right now to do that, so you'd have to do it through a millage increase. Which is the case if they default right now without that too, though.
Is that true, Mike?
That's right. And if I can chime in, I attended a meeting last week, where the chairman and one other member of the IDA were present. And I brought this up, and explained, in pretty frank terms that these bonds are being issued to the bond market based on the county's creditworthiness. The county is undertaking this based on the IDA's creditworthiness, because that's who you look to for the reimbursement from the revenues, which means that going forward, you have more than a theoretical interest in every bit of their revenue and debt structure. They absolutely cannot take on any additional debt without this board's oversight. They expressed to me that they understood that, were fine with that, and I think this encourages, this makes more practical maybe cooperation between those two boards that hasn't been there before and should have been there. I would just chime in from my own perspective, from having seen in other counties. Your water and sewer lines become your zoning map. And that's one reason, if not this, that this board needs to be much more involved in what's going on there with the water and sewer structure. And ultimately, this board, not that it should ever have to come to this, but the members of that board serve at the pleasure of the members of this board. And you ultimately control what happens there. And so I think that's the assurance that you can exercise the authority you need.
Well, that was one of the main reasons I was hoping the board would do tonight, but it's not in public, but I'd like to know what went on, why they fired another chairman, because there must be something going on over there. You don't just certify a chairman. And if there's something going on over there, I think this board needs to know, maybe not in public, but they need to know.
And just to clarify, not the elected chair or appointed chairman, but the employee executive director who you're talking about, right?
Which we don't have any control over to start with.
We control the board, though.
We control the board, but not employees.
Well,
We didn't
that's our
control the one
technical.
we didn't control the one got fired, in other words.
Right.
But we're trying to get to where we should.
You know,
We should have.
like-
We've always had, the board has always had this power, if you want to say, or the authority. They've always had it. Since you've been in office, since Mr. President, since we've all been in office, we've always had that authority. If we don't like what they were doing, we can replace them. Just like the Board of Assessors. If we don't like what they're doing, we can replace them. And that's our checks and balances on that too. So I'm just saying, if we're speaking facts, that's facts. So, so what's funny? I don't know. I'd love to an
Talk about
explanation.
replacing board of tax assessors. I tried to have a meeting with them the other night, and y'all didn't even pay no attention.
Okay. Well, let's get back to that.
I just want to focus on this, and what I will tell you, just to wrap it up, though, I will be happy and to have members of the IDA at a meeting or whatever, or it just in discussion, to explain, you know, some of the internal decisions that have been made. There's no reason, and it happens with our Chamber of Commerce as well. I mean, that was a hybrid operation, so there was a deliberate effort to separate those two, and that's how that came about, so.
But one other thing, and I'm gonna shut up. You said you're looking at 3 point something, but it could go to 5 point something.
No, I mean, we've got a parameters that gives us leeway, and that's really because we use a couponing structure with bonds. You have a coupon and then a yield, and that's, but we're looking at a borrowing yield right at 3.3%.
But it could go to 5 something. It says so in the paper.
There's a parameter that we might use a 3, 4, or 5% coupon, but the yield is truly the formula that says what you're paying back, and that in today's market is 3.3, and we don't expect that to move any material way. And when it does, we wouldn't bring it forward to you next week, because look, that kind of movement, we're ourselves not going to sell bonds in that kind of environment. So,
Right.
On that, the coupon is, 5%. What happens is, they're getting more interest on that bond, but they're going to pay a lot more money to buy that bond. So say it's a $10,000 bond, if it was at 3.5%, whatever the market is, 3.25%, so they're going to get 5%, they're going to give you $12,000 for that bond, which means you borrow less money. And so it works out mathematically that it's the exact same amount of borrowing rate. Your debt service will be the exact same. But, if we do use a 5% coupon, you also have to borrow a lot less money because, they're paying you more for that bond. And so it works out that way. And so the net yield effect will be the exact same as, the interest rates we're talking about right now.
Any other discussion on that? So the motion is to approve, or to adopt the resolution to approve an intergovernmental contract with the Industrial Development Building Authority. The vote is to Commissioner Isco.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No. Yes. Next item is to consider purchasing road equipment. We have 2 pieces of equipment, and gentlemen, if you two need to depart, he's got a document I believe we need to sign.
I can leave one, guys, we can get them later.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah, that works fine.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you. I'll get back with you soon. And I wish, I don't have it in front of me, Ron, but I know we approved, Alan to go out and look at there are 2 pieces of equipment, and I believe, did we provide them that by chance?
Did I provide y'all with this?
Do you have two pages that look like that?
I don't. No.
What?
You want copies?
We can make you copies, and then I'll share with you.
After the packet.
Right. What Alan was looking to do was he's got a patch wagon. The road department has a patch wagon that is approaching the end of its useful life at 19 years old. And we initially were going, according to our purchasing policy, is to go out for sealed bids on those. And when contacting a few vendors, we became aware of collective purchase agreements which are in compliance with state contract as well. They have vendors, Ford, GM or whatever, that participate in their collective bid process. So in essence, what they do is they have removed the requirement for us to actually collect sealed bids. They're actually getting those bids periodically. They're updated periodically. This is the National Purchasing Alliance, Joint Alliance, NPGA, I believe is
Right.
Is the organization, and I'll defer to the county attorney for an explanation of at least the viability of using them, since they are a collective that is actually doing the bidding process. So.
Yeah, and this is really the same thing that you do whenever you say, for example, we're buying sheriff's cars, and we say we're buying those off-state contract. That's when the State Department of Administrative Services has gone out and done something, like this, where they get a bid on a statewide basis. There are also private companies that do the same thing, usually set up as nonprofits, I think. It's used more in the educational world than the county and city world, although it's frankly been pretty common in the county and city world for a number of years now too. No cost for participation in that to the county or city. The vendors who participate, they pay these cooperatives to be able to participate, and it's worth it to them because, it opens up a much bigger market for them, much bigger audience. But it's basically just outsourcing your competitive bid process to somebody who can do it to a larger market and get a better price.
Of those that we did actually receive bids from, I can tell you, and when Tracy gets back, she has a quote from this alliance.
I can give you the dollar amount.
Well, I got the dollar amounts of the two. The one from the local vendor. Do you have that, Ronald Warren? How much was that?
The patch wagon, $66,674.89.
Now, is that through NPGA? Was that their quote? Right. But I'm talking about the one when we went directly to them, and I believe I have it. And I apologize. This is a direct quote from the vendor. It is a higher amount.
While he's looking that up, let me ask you a question. What does it do about our county policy that says we have sealed bids over 10,000?
Well, I guess first I'd say it's pretty much identical to what we've been doing anyway on state bidding contracts, so to the extent it's not in our county policy, it hasn't been there before on those either. The other way to look at it is, you're really just outsourcing. It's not that you're bypassing competitive bids, you're just outsourcing it and letting somebody else go through that for you. So I don't think it's against the policy. I do think our policy needs to be updated to expressly, note this and a whole lot of other modern stuff in the world of purchasing that's just not in there now. And that's something actually Lee and I talked about earlier today, but we'll get to that.
We've had this discussion time after time about the state contract stuff, when we could have actually had it bid out and got it less on some of these police cars. Then they called me and asked why they wouldn't get it bid, and it's so much they wouldn't do it, I think. And I told them, they say it's a state contract, but you don't always have to take the state contract.
No, you don't.
And I just wonder if we're not getting into an area where we're gonna cut out some people that could possibly bid something closer by.
Well, and we did engage local vendors. For this type of equipment, there are not that many manufacturers. DOT buys from Craftco is the brand name, and we went to Jackson County. Both of these pieces of equipment we received, or I was witness to the crack sealer machine that they brought in for a demo, and Alan went to Jackson County and saw the patch machine. And I believe they were also at the Buyers Market. And they were at the Buyers Market. I do know they were at the Buyers Market at the conference. Yeah. They're large. Craftco is I won't say they're sole source, but I mean, they do make most of the heavy equipment for DOT or that type. I'll have to find it. I've got a quote, but two that you have for those two pieces of equipment are in the neighborhood of $4,000 to $6,000 cheaper than a local vendor can provide those. And that's, what the local vendor was Reynolds Warren, and, well, that was one of them, and that would have been his sealed bid, that's what I'm highlighting. But if you go through NPGA, it's $4,000 to $6,000 cheaper. So, in this case, I believe we would have, we might have been penalized for not using the collective purchase agreement that they have.
But you don't always know if that's gonna be the case.
You don't know, you don't always know. You don't always know. And here's, you know, and here's what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to see if we can get, those quotes, just, you know, for, if it eases or makes this a little bit, clearer, but I don't want to penalize a collective organization that, they're operating on scale, and I don't want to, penalize the county for us not considering to go, and that's the reason this, when this, it was a vendor, by the way, that told me about this, organization. They felt like if they weren't gonna get the bid, they will get the business ultimately anyhow, because they'll service this larger company's contract.
I'm all about getting the equipment, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
I have always been trying to follow county policy, and when you go by county policy, just to do state contract, and you don't know that you could get it cheaper. And I know one case it could have. That's a long time ago, that's 7 years ago.
I would never suggest we deal with anybody, local, distant, whoever, as it violates policy or it's a under the table deal. I wouldn't support that either. I'm just, I believe in using every resource you have to try to get the
Don't use
best price.
those resources we have, but better start changing county policy then.
Well, and I agree, and I had no problem with going back and amending the policy or getting that in front of the board to amend. For inclusion, this can be considered as a bid too, though. So, and if we want to consider something like this, doesn't mean you have to always go with this. If you find it cheaper locally or through an individual vendor, then I absolutely wouldn't go through the collective. I'm just saying right now it appears that they have a much better, their ability, their economies of scale are making them more appealing to that purchase. And I hate wasting your, hang on. As sure as I said that, I think I did. I have them right here. This is a quotation for the Magnum spray patcher. So this was their cost on this, and I'll share this with you via email, or you can look here. No, this is the crack sealer. Their base price is $78,000, and then for the attachments that are included in this price here, their total price is they don't have it. They don't have a total, they just have the options broken out if you want it. Their base price though is exactly, is $3,200 more in base price, and another appears to be about $30,000 for the options that you really need. You gotta get a penalty, you gotta get certain things to operate it. So that was on the first one. I don't wanna drag this out anymore. And the second one is total delivered price on the patch wagon is $73. I don't know if you can see that, Mike. I don't really need anybody to verify this in the I've got them twisted here. These are backwards. I wrote this down based on, I didn't have this.
Well, I'm just counting while you're computing there. places that I represent that do have, you know, a little more updated purchasing policy, the board still asks, you know, when the recommendation's made, how did you get to that recommendation? Did you do your due diligence? It's just that the policy offers other vehicles other than just going out and doing your own sealed bids and ad in the paper to try to get the best price. That's all.
Right. Yeah, the other difference was, $7,000, approximately $6,800 different. The quote from NJPA is $6,700 cheaper. So, the reason, and again, if the desire of the board is to postpone this and vote on it, we can do that. The push was, we're in the paving season, and the local contracts that were let by Garrett, or that we let with Garrett, those will be starting in June, in the June timeframe. So this was an effort to be able to do some of this in concert with that.
John, I know we need the equipment, I'm all for getting equipment, so let's get the equipment, but let's look at changing policy, because the policy said anything over $10,000 to seal fee.
15, yeah, anything over 15,000.
I'm gonna sort of in fall county policy, and then just decide, but I'd like, go and do this time, whatever. But if the county policy changed to do whatever we need to do.
We'll undertake that this week. I don't have any problem doing that. As a matter of fact, I agree 100%, and this is the first opportunity this has come up as far as a purchasing alternative since since I learned of it. This is my first exposure to this too. So, but in either case, I'll yield to the board whatever your decision is. If you want to consider the purchase, or if you want to postpone, you let me know what your desire is on this, and I'll certainly do it. And I don't have any problem with that.
Where would you get your money?
Splost. He has it. It is a these are about $140,000 combined cost.
I'll make a motion that we purchase the equipment, Splash.
I have a motion and a second to purchase from Splost. Any other comments on that?
There's other equipment we're gonna talk about at some point. 60 horsepower tractors, 4-foot bush hog, it's not really doing much out there.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about that on the roads update. So the motion is to purchase the two. This is the two pieces of equipment that you have a quote for now. I want to make sure that you understand one of them is a crack sealer, one of them is a patch wagon. And
I will say the patch wagon we got is probably leaking more diesel fuel than it uses.
It's got a $1,700 repair.
It's ridiculous.
$1,700 repair on the nozzle to be put back in service. So before we go spending any more money, I'd just like, if we're going to purchase, it would be better to sell that, get what you can from it, and purchase this. So, any other comment on that?
You got a second yet?
We did. We got a second here.
You do it. Didn't hear you, sorry.
Second.
I was waiting on it.
All right. If no other discussion, the vote is to purchase the road equipment goes to Commissioner Allen. Yes.
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 All right. Roads update. Anybody have anything on roads?
Archer Road needs that equipment as soon as it gets you.
Yes. Archer Road is the one that they just did. Oh, is that the,
I don't know, did they do it with the old patch wagon? I did the grading on the dirt part of it, but.
yeah, if he passed it, it was with it. I mean, that's all we got right now, so.
You know, if you keep the rain away, so they can actually work so.
Yeah. Here in a month, we'll be looking at rain. We're receiving a lot of attention down on, oh my goodness, got to thank the name of the two roads, near, in Oakland.
Musket Ridge.
No, it's next to Musket, Dogwood and Chaparral. Dogwood and Chaparral, and those are, Alan is going, he will be on those.
And down the Mize Road and McGinnis Chandler too. Those are constant. I got a lake foreman at the intersection of those roads in Black Creek. He knows about it, I just wanted to,
If you have any, please don't wait. I mean, if you'll call Alan directly, or if you call me, I'll try to get him out there on it. And I'll be riding the roads tomorrow anyhow, looking at as many as I can. On to urgent matters. Does anybody have any urgent matter? Anything that meets that? All right. Statements and remarks from citizens. Your opportunity on any item. Anybody care to speak on anything? Any need for executive?
No, sir.
All right, all we need is a motion to adjourn. I have a motion.
Second.
A second goes to you.
Yes.
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 Thank you, folks.